Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Rohaan. I've just graduated from King's College in London and I'm about to start studying medicine at Bart in London next year. This time last year, I was studying for the UCAT exam, and I'm sure many of you are doing the same who want to pursue a career in medicine. So I want to help some of you out there that are struggling to learn some of the techniques to get a better score on the quantitative reasoning section. So I've structured this video in 3 main parts and I'll link them down below in the timestamps so you can skip around. So let's not waste any time. This is how I got an 880 on the QR section of the UCAT. My first tip is to practice slowly. You'll watch many YouTubers who will tell you that you need to practice with time pressure and make sure that you really finish the questions fast. But first, you need to take a step back and practice slowly. The quantitative reasoning section is really quite basic mathematics. If you've done GCSE maths, you'll find all the content really familiar. So the first thing you need to do is actually go through the content so you understand the equations and the concepts you need to know. For example, that could be percentage increases or calculating the mean, mode, and median. Practicing these things slowly first means that you will have a solid foundation where you can build upon speed and timing. So the first resource I used, and I highly recommend, this is not sponsored, is to use this 1250 UCAT book. The QR section of this book is much more difficult than the real UCAT exam. However, you'll find that it has all the necessary content for you to understand the main concept. So what I first did was I went over the QR section and made sure I actually learned and understood all the concepts. So an extension to tip 1 is, so after you've learned all this content, that's when you start implementing time. And I used Medify. I'll link that in the description below. The great thing about Medify is it's very similar to the actual UCAT format, and you can set timers and make sure you're actually finishing questions in the right amount of time. I believe the UCAT is 36 questions in 24 minutes. So that means you're gonna have to answer questions really quickly. Once you've got your foundations of the content, you can quickly increase the speed and make sure that you are very efficient. My second tip is to get really familiar with the format of the UCAT, as well as the online calculator and the keyboard shortcuts. So as you try and answer these questions fast, you need to implement techniques that make you speed up the process. And one of the best ways is really knowing how to use the calculator and how to use keyboard shortcuts. I got a lot of advice on why you should not use the calculator in the UCAT exam, but I've found that although you need to have good mental math, the calculator is essential for many questions, and knowing how to use it fast can save you a lot of time. It might seem like a few seconds using the keyboard shortcuts, so here's a list of all the keyboard shortcuts that you should know for your calculator and for the rest of the exam. And although these may seem like very few seconds, when you add them all up throughout the whole 1.5 hour, 2 hour exam, that's going to save you a few minutes. And those few minutes are crucial for harder questions and so that you can look back at answers that you flagged. And that brings us to the third and final tip: skip the hard questions. Now I know for me personally, I found some topics horrible. For example, percentage changes, I absolutely hated them. And so whenever I came across one of these questions, I got stuck and I would lose my momentum that I had previously. That would kind of ruin my progress for the rest of the exam. So what you need to do is prioritize the questions that you're confident with and that you know. And that's how you build confidence throughout the exam. So if you come across a question that you don't like the topic or you're struggling to find the answer, skip it, flag the question and move on. What you want to do is build enough momentum and speed on the questions that you're good at so that you can get to the end of the exam and go back and look at these harder questions which you may take a little more time on. For me, this is the tip that saved me the most time and really enabled me to get an almost perfect score. Lastly, don't practice quantity, but practice quality. Yes, you do want to do a lot of practice, but make sure practice is constructive. Focus on the areas that you're weakest and then improve your speed. The exam is going to have a few tough questions sprinkled in throughout the dataset, and they're designed to make you stop and waste time. So what you want to do is just move on from them and come back at the end when you've hopefully built up some time from doing the easy questions fast because you know the content really well and you've saved time using the keyboard shortcuts and the calculator. Don't be afraid to use the whiteboard that you've given or on the computer and scribble down notes for you to keep in your memory. This is extremely helpful if you find it's easier to visualize something if you've written it down. I know I'm a fan of that. So those are my top 3 tips for the quantitative reasoning section for the UCAT. I want to tell you guys, no matter how bad at maths you are, you're definitely capable of doing the maths on this exam. It's all just a game, and what you have to do is figure out how to best navigate through the game. If you found this content useful and want to see more on the UCAT, leave me a comment down below or via Instagram. And if you've enjoyed this content, I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed to the channel. Thanks for watching, and go smash the exam.